Oh my gosh, did I just fail the NCLEX in 75 questions? All right, guys, so before I start, let's talk about what we already know. Let's talk about a typical nursing exam that you're taking, okay? For the most part, there are 3 types of questions you're gonna get. Number 1, you're gonna get the typical multiple choice question, which we love those. We appreciate those. Keep more of those, you know? And then you have the math questions, which we're like, okay, all right, you know, I gotta get into my math, and it's not typically hard math, but you just gotta know how to do it. And then there's the other question. The one that nobody wants to see. The one that you see and you just throw your hands in the air and just forget about it. Select all that apply. And you know, for the most part, I will say, even to this day, I still don't like select all that apply questions. Now, for those who don't know what it's like to be a nursing student, and trust me, guys, I got this. If you're a nursing student, don't worry, okay? Fred RN is gonna tell them, okay? Most people think that when you go to nursing school and you've taken med-surg, you're taking critical care, you're taking OB, you've taken pharmacology, probably thinking you should be ready. You've been in school for the last 3 years just studying nursing stuff. But what you have to understand is that there is so much information when it comes to nursing that in order to really feel prepared, you have to continually study day in and day out. And even after all that, you still don't feel that you know enough to take this exam. Now, let's talk about the type of student I was. Now, I am proud to say that I was an A and B student. I will always say that. But the most important thing is that I was that guy. Okay? And when I say I was that guy or that student, let me explain. I was that guy that would be taking an exam and would use every single second of the exam time to take my exam. So, if the teacher gave us 2 hours to take an exam, you better believe that Fred RN was gonna be there for that whole 2 hours, and he was not gonna give up any single minute. I don't care if he was finished before, because typically the way I was is like, I would take an exam and usually we're given 1 minute and 30 seconds. And I would take 1 minute and 29 seconds because you need that 1 second just to click to the next question. So I'm there. 1 minute, 29 seconds. I'm using every bit of it and nobody's gonna rush me, period. Okay? But in a classroom of nursing students, you will always have that student who will finish a 2-hour exam in 30 minutes. And I'd be like, what? Huh? Wait a minute. Did I not get the memo? Where's everybody getting the answers to this exam? Because there is no way that in a 100 exam question, I'm on a question number 30 and this person and that person is already leaving and they're already submitting their exam in the nursing classroom, okay? But I realized that, you know what? I didn't care because, you know, usually after an exam, everybody huddles up like, oh my God, we survived it. I can't believe we made it out of that exam. But I wasn't that student during nursing school. No, I was not. Because while everybody was celebrating, and you always have some students that hold up the exam and they'll be like, where's so-and-so? And be like, where's Fred? Fred was still in the room. Like, man, do they need that much time? Like, who else is in there? I'd be like, me? Me? Me. I'm still taking the exam, so can you please keep it down so I can finish my exam? And there was no shame in my game because I knew that if I wanted to pass this test, I wanted to reread and reread and reread, say a prayer, dear Jesus, before I submit this one question, I want you to please make sure that I get this question correct because we need to graduate nursing school, dear Jesus. And I would do that for every exam. And people find it annoying, but that is typically the kind of student I am, and it worked flawlessly, okay? So, going into the NCLEX, okay? It was the same thing. It was like deja vu. I was sitting in the testing area and I walked into the testing site and the lady's in there and she's like, hey, put your stuff in here. This is where you have to go. This is where you sit. And I know there's other students around me because even though I'm in a booth and I have my own privacy, it is recorded, so you can't cheat. Don't even consider, listen, it's not gonna happen. But you won't even wanna take that chance. And if you do, oh my gosh, are you serious? But I remember I was like on question 30 of my NCLEX, and I just heard ruffling and moving and people getting up and people leaving. And I was like, what is going on? Everybody's getting the answers to this exam. Of course, I knew it wasn't true. I'm a very fast reader, but I reread because I'm like, this question is asking this. But is it asking this? No, it's definitely asking this. Always think about patient safety, then you'll always get the answer correct. That's just general rule of thumb for any kind of nursing question, okay? But you know that by the time I was on question 65, I was the only one left. I'm pretty sure you and I have come to an understanding that that's what happened, right? I was the only one left when I was on question 65, get closer. And you know, I'm getting close to 70. And I'm like, oh shoot. I'm like, okay, this is getting real. It's getting real. And you know, I'm getting on question 73. I'm breathing hard. I'm getting on question 74. And you know what's crazy? Like before I took my exam, I used the bathroom like 4 times. And then all of a sudden my bladder fills up. And I'm like, I gotta use the bathroom. And I'm like, no. But that's the way my anxiety works. You know, your mind plays tricks on you. And I'm on question 75, bladder full. And I'm like, listen, let me be honest with y'all. I did not want my exam to finish at 75 questions, okay? And for those of you who do not know, let me enlighten you a little bit, okay? If you finish your exam at 75 questions, you either did really, really good, or hooray, or you did really bad, you probably failed the exam, like horribly, okay? And knowing what kind of test taker I am, who likes to reread, I wanna be, I wanna be in the running. I wanna go to question 150 something. I just wanna keep it going because the more questions you get, the more you know you're still in there, you're hanging in there, you're in the race, you're about to pass this NCLEX because you're still going. They're giving you questions, they're like, oh my gosh, I can see it. But at 75, it's kind of devastating. And I do mean that. So, I submit question 75, anticipating question 76, and then my computer just turns off. So of course, me being the polite gentleman that I am, I call the proctor of the exam. And you know, that proctor is probably there for so long, she's probably like, oh my God, he's still taking that exam? I'm like, yes, ma'am, I'm still taking that exam, and we have a problem. This computer right here decided to malfunction at question 75. And she looked at me and she's like, okay, let me take a look at it. And she goes, no, nothing's wrong with it. You're just done. I'm like, I'm what? She said, you're done. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, because I'm pretty sure that there are more questions. So she's like, no, you can leave. I was like, no, I really want to, but my butt cheeks are glued to the seat until I finish this NCLEX exam because I can't go home and tell everybody that the computer malfunctioned and my exam didn't pass. I said, so look, either I'm going to, continue this exam or I'm going to spend the night until we figure this out. So when she kicked me out of the exam building, because my exam was done, she said I could leave and kick me out. I said, all right, go. It was a hard car ride home. I mean, it was a hard car ride home. I was driving. I was swerving in lanes. I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh. I said, all those years in college, I'm like, all that wasted money. I'm like, oh my gosh. And listen, I was swerving lanes. I mean, trust me, it was horrible. It was horrible. Came home, I didn't talk to anybody. I just got in my bed and you know what's crazy? Have you ever heard people say that that there's a way to find out if you pass the exam ahead of time? So I called my brother and I said, yo, Drew. And he was like, yo, man, what's up? My brother is a registered nurse, okay? He's been a nurse for a little while. And I said, Drew, I bombed this test. He said, you what? I said, dude, I bombed this test. And he said, how'd you know that? He said, how many questions did you get? Like 100 something? I said, 75. He said, Fred, he said, you could have just aced it. Probably not, but you could have just aced it. I was like, you know what, man? I was like, let me just hang up on this guy and let me talk to some other time. I said, People have been telling me, hey, Fred, if you try to log into the computer system and try to re-register, if it lets you re-register, that means you failed. And if it doesn't re-register you, it's because you passed. So I go on the computer, you know, tears down my cheeks, and I'm like, okay, maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I go in, I'm expecting to say, no, Mr. Richardson, you're not gonna be able to register for the exam. And you know, people will say 50% of the time it's true, 50% of the time it's false. So I'm just gonna say it probably doesn't work. But look, I signed in, and it said, hey, Mr. Richardson, would you like to come in next month to take your exam? And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what are you trying to say, computer? Because the computer is telling me that I could re-register for this exam. So again, tears come down my eyes. I'm crying. And I just can't believe it. I just failed my NCLEX. I go to sleep about 2 o'clock in the morning. They say give them about 24 hours for the exam to notify you whether you passed or not. You know, I gave them a good 3 hours, and I kept logging in over and over and over and over again. I finally fell asleep at 2 hours, and my brother calls me the next day. And he said, hey, Fred, did you figure out where you want to work? I was like, what? I said, why are you calling me so early? I said, Fred, do you know where you want to work as a nurse? I said, boy, stop playing. And he's like, yo, your license is up. It's up. You passed. I was like, come on, man. I wasn't worried about anything. Listen, you were worried, but I wasn't worried. I'm like, listen, man, the student has become the teacher. I have passed my NCLEX. And of course, I was terrified the whole time, just joking. And I realized something. If you're a nursing student, you know so much more than you think you know. I mean, you're amazing. You are sitting there studying to save lives, and you're gonna save lives. And you're so smart. And I think that's the most incredible thing about a nurse. They're so smart. And I realized that all of the hard work, everything I put into it mattered, and it's finally coming into fruition because I passed my NCLEX. And you're gonna pass your NCLEX too. So, I was really considering, I think back now, and I'm thinking about whether or not I should post what I did to study, because there were a lot of things I did to study for the NCLEX. What was your experience with taking the NCLEX? And if you want me to make a video about what I did to prepare for the NCLEX, I certainly will do that. But the only way you can do that is by liking and subscribing, because if you don't, then you don't know when Fred RN is going to post his next video. But until next time, just remember, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. I passed my NCLEX!